Hey guys, so today we're going to set up replication between a MySQL instance that is being hosted on AWS via the RDS service and between a MySQL server instance on my local machine. The RDS instance will be the master and my machine will be the slave. So basically that means when I make a change to my cloud instance, my cloud MySQL database, it'll be copied over to my database that is on my local machine. The cloud instance is the original and my local machine copies the changes. So you're going to learn all about replication and it's going to be straightforward. I'm going to walk you through every step of the process, starting with making this RDS instance. Let's begin. Now, before we make the RDS instance, we need to make a new parameter group. And this parameter group is important because we need to be able, what is a parameter group? You might not even know. So basically, whenever you install a MySQL instance, I'm going to show you this later, how to get to this, but you have a bunch of settings that you can change. Actually, before I talk about that, I'm going to let's just make the parameter group. Let's just call this PG2 and the engine. I'm going to be using MySQL. So go with the MySQL community 8.0 and a DB parameter group. It can also be DB cluster, but because I'm not using Aurora, I don't think that'll be necessary. I'm not using a cluster with my setup, so a parameter group should be fine. Just write some description. Okay, so now let's just quickly make a new database. Standard create MySQL. Let me make sure my voice is being recorded. It is. Okay, MySQL. We're not going to mess with any of these things. It's going to just be a basic MySQL instance. I'm going to go with the free tier. We got to make our own password. So make sure you remember this password, guys. And if you don't know how to set up any of the things I show you in this video, like we're going to need to use MySQL in the command prompt. So if you don't know how to set up, like just type MySQL, you should just get this access denied. You can look at my previous videos on how to set that up. Okay, instance configuration. We're going to go with the micro, go with all the free tier options. We're not going to connect an EC2 instance. We're going to create a new VPC, create a new DB subnet group because we're going to need to be able to connect from our local device to this instance. We need to allow public access. We're gonna create a new VPC security group. We'll just call it SG1. We have no preference for the availability zone. We are not going to use RDS proxy, no tags. We'll have password authentication. You're not going to get charged this. People might get confused. Oh, I'm about to make this. Am I about to be charged $15? No, guys, you just get charged for what you use. So, for me, I'm going to delete this right after I make this video. So I'm going to be charged very little, perhaps. So just make sure whenever you just delete whatever you make it as soon as you make it. So then you won't get charged that much. You're only going to get charged a little and do a lot of learning. So let's create the database. This will probably take 2 minutes. So as I was mentioning, you need to make sure that I'm going to be using the MySQL command line. Close. Okay. From my command prompt, you need to have MySQL installed. If you don't have that installed, check out my video on how to install MySQL. Check out my video on how to configure the command line. Like, it's really easy. You just go to your environment variables and add this to your add this to your path file, which is just right here. Like, you go to this PC, you go to program files, you go to MySQL Server, you go to bin, and you just add this path to your environment variables to get that working. If you didn't know that, like, you would just add a new one. Oh, no, not that. You would just add, copy this address as text, and you would just add that like this, and then it would work the way it does for me. And then the second thing is, you might wonder, what is a parameter group? So a parameter group, basically, whenever you install a MySQL instance, there's a lot of configurations that you can do, and we're going to be manipulating some of our on-premise configurations. So if you go to your C folder, and you got to make sure you enable hidden items, or else you won't see this folder, because this folder is hidden. You got to go to program data, and you go to MySQL server, and you see this my.ini file. This is where all your configurations will lie. Like, if you need to change things, typically you'll do that in this folder. So these are the configurations that we set when we installed MySQL. We're going to modify this a little, but that's what parameter groups is in AWS. It's basically the way you can modify your instance, the same way that your instance configurations, in the similar way that we can modify our local on-premise instance through this my.ini file. So I hope you understand that. This database is still being created, and we're going to chill out. I got my instructions here to guide you through the tutorial. Okay, actually, we can make our inbound rules so that we can connect to our RDS instance. I think, yeah, the security group got made, so I just clicked on my database. That's currently, even though it's currently being made, we can modify this because this security group shows active. So let's modify our security group. Let's select this. Now we got to make a new inbound rule. Select this, edit inbound rules. Now we want to be able to accept any TCP connection because MySQL runs on TCP. The source can be from anywhere. You can make it my IP, but just for simplicity, let's just make it anywhere because this is all for learning. Save these rules. Okay, so now once our RDS instance is created, we'll be able to connect to it. And we still don't have the endpoint, so okay, nice. The RDS instance just got created. So just to verify our connectivity to it, we can just go and make a new connection. I'll delete this, and we'll make a new one. So we got our endpoint. To make your connection, guys, all you need to do is just copy the endpoint that from your RDS instance and use the same password and username that you used when you created your RDS instance. Continuing on. 4336. Now we gotta put admin, because remember, guys, during configuration, our master username is admin and the password is whatever we made. So admin, and our password is whatever we wrote. Super secret password, test our connection. Excellent, we can connect to it, successful. Okay, so next. Oh wait, I just realized I have to modify. I didn't add the parameter group. The whole point of making it was to change it. So I gotta go to this database. I have to modify it, but I still need to wait, I think. Because I just realized, okay. Yeah, it uses the default parameter group, which is not what I want, because it doesn't let you edit this parameter group. I need to be able to edit it to allow replication. So and oh, there, finally, I was wondering, why can't I modify it? I guess it was still setting up in the background. Okay, we got to do a quick modification. This is a little disappointing, but I forgot it. Otherwise, it won't work. Parameter group right here. Additional configuration parameter group. Set that to PG2 or whatever parameter group you made. So you got to make that modification. Modify the instance. Okay, well done. So we successfully modified it, and we can see it here if we go to configuration. Using PG2, it's still applying. In the meantime, we got to go to PG2 and we got to make a modification. So we added the inbound rule. That's checked. Now we got to change the bin log format to mixed. So we're going to copy this, or we can just type in here. So we got to click edit and bin log underscore format. So right now, okay, it's already mixed. So guys, you got to make sure, look at your bin log format for your parameter group. You need to make sure that it's mixed or row. But I'm going to go with mixed. So make sure that it's mixed. Otherwise, the replication won't work. Modified. But it's already the value that we want. Still applying. So guys, bin log underscore format. Make sure that it's mixed. Okay, so that step is all done. Our RDS instance is up. And you might be wondering, okay, don't we need to check if binary logging is enabled? Well, typically, if you go to your instance, you'll notice something. Like if you go to the backups, I guess you can't modify while a modification is occurring. That's why it's happening. But the easy way to check this is if you just go to log underscore bin. Like basically if backups are enabled on your RDS instance, which they usually are by default, then your log underscore bin is set to the correct value. And I'm going to show you how we can check the values in using the terminal. So the next step is, yeah, I write for myself here, setting the bin log format to mixed on your RDS instance is necessary for replication because it combines the benefits of both statement and row formats, ensuring accurate and consistent replication of all types of SQL statements. This format provides better compatibility and reliability when replicating from the RDS master to your on-premise SQL Server slave. So next, we got to log into our RDS server via the command line. So we'll do -h. So this is specifying the host that we are connecting to. So we're going to go to our RDS instance. Oh, we got to reboot the instance to make our changes final. So let's just quickly reboot our RDS instance. And then we'll connect to it. So that'll just take a moment. Okay, the instance is now available. By the way, guys, when I was talking about how bin log, you might be wondering, we didn't set the log underscore bin to be enabled from our parameter group. log underscore bin is enabled by default if backups are enabled. So you can see clearly when we go to modify our instance to look at our configurations, backups are enabled, as it does say here that backups, it asks us to specify we have already enabled automated backups. So it's already a default check. So the log underscore bin parameter will be enabled. And I'll show you how to check that from the terminal. There's a way to check if your variables are set to the correct value. So next we need to connect to this RDS instance via the terminal. So we're going to select the host that we're connecting to is this. You just copied the endpoint. The user is admin, and we're going to hit the -P. It'll ask for our password. We got to give it the password that we set. Okay, so next we got to make a replication user. So even you could follow along from here. So you could follow along with the changes, some of the changes visually if you prefer the visual interface, but some of the changes can only be done from the terminal as far as I'm aware. So we're going to make basically a new user, and we got to grant that user the replication slave. The replication slave privileges to replication user on any machine. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll give you all of this article to you, this Word file I've written, so that you don't need to write all this out. You can just copy and paste in order to follow along the way I am. So great, we made our replication slave. Now we need to check master status. Now guys, this is the test to see if your variables are configured correctly. This should show up like this. Okay, at the end of all of your statements, you need the semicolon. So this shows that everything is configured correctly. We have binary logging, and the bin log format is mixed. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to make a table, and this table will represent the table that will be replicating. So whenever we make a change on our AWS cloud instance, it'll be copied to our local instance. So I made the basic line to. Actually, I'm going to show you this first because I keep talking about it. So first, I'm going to show you the variable. If it's set correctly, this is the real test. So we're going to check if bin log format is set on our RDS instance to what we want. So you can copy paste this to check, and you can see it's mixed the way we put online via our parameter group. And we can do log underscore bin, and you'll see it'll be on. So see, these are very important, guys. The replication won't work if these are off. Okay, now let's just make the table, and this table will represent the table that we will replicate. Let's copy this. Let's go to MySQL. This is the RDS instance. As you can see, it says RDS in the top left corner. Might as well just also log on to my local instance. So here we're going to make the database, and you can use the workbench because I prefer the workbench if I can use it. It's just I like the UI. Let's execute all of this. This is pretty straightforward. You should know what tables and insert statements and create statements in databases are. Let's select the top 1,000 rows and everything inserted just as we wanted. So, oh, not this one. So now if we show master status, you're gonna notice the bin log went up. I mean, the position went up. So just keep that in mind, guys. This is going to be important later. So for now, we're done with the AWS instance, I think, and we can move on to configuring our local instance, which is going to require quite a bit of configuration. So let's go to our local instance. Now we gotta configure some special parameters in our local instance for this to work. So as I mentioned, we gotta go to our my.ini file. Now this might be difficult for some of you to find, so let's find it quickly together. So we go to this PC, we go to C drive. We gotta make sure, guys, this is important. You gotta enable to show your hidden items if you can't, because this is a hidden item. So if I turn this off right now, you're gonna see a bunch of folders disappear. See, folders disappeared. Now we gotta turn it back on. Okay, now we go to program data and we go to MySQL. We go to MySQL server. So this is the path, guys, to get to your my.ini file. Now we're gonna edit this with Notepad++. Now this is very important, guys. If this file gets messed up and corrupted, it can cause a lot of problems in your instance. And sometimes when I'm editing my file, just randomly my instance will crash. So what I like to do is, and I don't even know why, like you gotta make sure it's UTF-8 encoded. And I like to just make, this is in the workplace, you got to be very careful with this file. This can cause your whole instance to get messed up if you mess this up too much. So we're going to go through these changes one by one. First thing I'm going to do is you got to change the server ID to 2. So let's just change the server ID. So guys, you need to make sure that you change your server ID to 2. This is important because your local instance and your cloud instance, your instances need to have different server IDs. That's important for replication. So we're gonna find the server ID. So you can just easily, I think it's at the top. Okay, there it is. Server ID is on line 146. Now guys, very carefully. We're going to change this from 1 to 2 and save that. And then you're going to get this. This file cannot be saved and may be protected. We need to launch Notepad++ in administrator mode. You click yes. Click yes. Okay, now we go back and we save this. Now, I don't like making too many changes at once to my my.ini file. So what I like to do is every time I make a change, I like to restart the service just to make sure that my server is still working fine and doesn't crash, because sometimes I made some changes and it crashed. You guys might think this is ridiculous, but it's just me being cautious, I guess. So I'm going to just restart my instance. In the meantime, I'll open up another terminal. Okay, it got restarted. I'm going to just make sure that I can connect to my instance page. Okay, so we can connect fine. Next thing we need to change, we just need to change a couple more lines. So another thing you got to make sure is your log-bin needs to be equal to some value. Like guys, you don't need to create any files, guys. MySQL, when it detects that you've changed this parameter, it'll automatically make the file according to this naming convention. So your log-bin files will be prefixed with laptop-bin if you copy this, or at least mine's will be. Like I can show you. If you go to data, you'll see all of my binary log files are prefixed with laptop-bin. They start with laptop-bin. That's all that means. So you just need to add this line as is to your my.ini file. So I think I already have this. yeah, log.bin, I have this line, so I don't need to add it. And you need to add this relay log line. So, and this log underscore replica underscore updates line. So we're gonna add these two lines. I'll just, I don't think I have them. So before I add them, let me just make sure I don't have them. I don't have this. And let me just make sure I don't have this. I don't have it. Okay, that's good. So let's add these very carefully. Make sure you don't add any errors, guys. I'm telling you, if you have an extra character in there, you got to make sure use Notepad++ to make these modifications, guys. So we modified the file. Now let's just carefully restart the service, and it should restart successfully. Let's just stop it. And let's now start the service, and this should be successful for you. This is necessary to make your changes, to make sure the changes got made to your instance. Okay guys, so let's just make sure that we could still connect to our instance after we've made our changes. Let's make sure that we can connect to our instance after we made our changes, because I'm telling you guys, if you can't connect, you got to make these changes carefully. If you mess up modifying the my.ini file, it can really mess up your instance. So everything seems fine. That was the biggest step. So we can even check if our changes got made properly by using this show variables. We can just use the show variables command. You can see now our server ID is changed to 2. Not that one. You can see log.bin is, it's on for our local instance. And you can see the relay log, it's set to laptop-relay-bin. And the final one, log slave updates, we got to make sure that that is turned on so that our instance can receive the updates, our local instance. Now that we've set all these values in our file, in our my.ini file, we need to take a backup and restore it on the local instance, because all Replication does is it copies the updates, inserts, and deletes. But the two servers need to have the same database structure in order for the replication to happen correctly. Now, one way you can do this is by backing up the database, but instead, I'm just going to make my life easy. You can easily just back it up and restore it to the local, back up the cloud database and restore it to your local server. But instead of doing that, I'm going to just take the statements that we had here, and I will just create a database. Just create table, create database, and insert statements. I'll just execute them on my local machine, and that'll be enough to copy the structure. Now, if we refresh, we will see that if we go to our users table, we have the exact same users as the RDS database. Now, so we've restored the database basically. Now, all we need to do is execute these commands to point the slave to the local instance. Point the slave to the cloud instance, not the local instance, but the cloud instance. So you got to follow this format. You got to execute this command, change master to. The master host will be your cloud instance. Master user will be the replication user we made earlier. Remember, guys, earlier we executed this command to create a replication user on our RDS instance. if you go to administration of your RDS instance and you go to users and privileges, you're going to see there's a replication user. And if you go to administrative roles, you're going to see they got the replication slave privilege. So this user is basically going to come into our local instance and perform the updates, inserts, and deletes that we needed to do so that the master and the slave can be in sync. So that's why we got to specify that. So here you got to do the master user is the replication user. You got to make sure you remember the password. I just made my password. It was super simple. Your master log file is your bin log file. So this value, guys, on your RDS instance, you need to do the command. So I need to log into my RDS instance. Login -h-u is admin and the -b. Okay, you need to do the show master status. This is the file that the slave will start reading from your binary logs. And this is the position it is in the file. So that's what this log file value will be and the log position value will be. So I'm going to just modify it here and I'll just copy paste the whole thing because it's easier for me. So once this is done, so first your Aurora endpoint. So this is going to be equal to this. Your replication user is replication user and password's password. Now bin log file. Remember, guys, you do the show master status. The file is equal to this value. Copy it carefully and paste it here. Next, copy the position. So in my case, the position will be 157. So copy that and paste it. Oh, I forgot the whole time this. Okay, guys, I found my error. Okay, so for the longest time, I've been trying to copy this and it wasn't copying properly, all because at the beginning, I forgot this quotation mark here. Guys, copy the things very carefully. This took me like 10 minutes to find. Okay, just put a semicolon at the end and now this will all work. So I showed you how to get these values. Let's go. Okay, there. Now we have set our master for our slave. Now if I click show slave status, if you want to avoid this, you got to hit the \G and semicolon there. Now the output is nice. So we have all this information about our master, but you can clearly see it's not running. So in order to get it to run, all we just write is start slave. I think that's what we write. Yeah. Okay, we write start slave. I'm like 99% sure. Okay, now if we click show slave status, it is running. Oh wait, why isn't it? It might take a moment longer to run. Wait, I got an error. Bin log change. Oh yeah, change. That's why. Okay, I gotta update my slave. So I got this error, guys. This 1146 because worker 1 failed at executing the transaction at 12. So this happens because there were errors in the workers, and the reason is because during this time where I was trying to make my changes, this updated from 12 to 14. So I just gotta rerun this master slave status command to change it from 12 to 14. and then it'll work. Okay. Okay, we gotta. Okay, so we can't change the master we can't change the master while the slave is currently running. So, okay, so we can't make this change because we need to first stop the slave before we change it. So we just would stop slave. Okay, now if you show slave status, you got to do the show slave status with the /G colon there. So it's not replicating anymore. No and no. Now we just got to change this now. Okay, let's just double check that this, oh, it changed. Good thing I checked before I copied this. This is changed to 544. You got to make sure you get this right, guys, or otherwise you'll run into that error 1146. So we're going to paste this. Now we're going to show slave status, and you'll see the changes got made. Oh my god, it has to be uppercase G. You'll see the changes got made. We changed to 14 and 544. So let's start slave and show slave status. Now you'll see slave bio is running and the slave SQL is running. Great work, guys. Our replication is working. And now, after all this hard work, let's see this in action. Let's go to query. Okay, so right now, this is currently what is on my local machine, and this is my RDS instance. So this is currently what's on my RDS instance. So let's add another user into our RDS instance. Let's add whatever, Tony, and we'll just insert this one line. And you can clearly see Tony is there on our RDS instance. And if we go to our local instance, I will show you that it got inserted all by itself via replication. See, Tony is there. And if we insert another record, whatever, random text, and we insert this, and you see it's there in our RDS, and it'll be there in our local instance. So now we are replicating, guys, from RDS to our on-premise, where RDS is the master, our local instance is a slave. Look at this. This is before the replication. This is the first record. This is the second record. This thing is running. I ran into a couple errors, but that's fine. That's development for you. Yes, and yes, slave bio is running, slave SQL is running. This is great. This is excellent. Just to show you one more time, I'm going to put some text. And now you're gonna see that got replicated. So I kept all of these open to show you the changes are genuinely happening by themselves, not because of me. So that is replication, the easiest way tutorial. Thank you, guys. I hope you learned something. I'll post all of this so that you don't need to write anything yourselves. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe and goodbye.